Thank you, Joe. There is not one single federal regulation in the entire country that has caused more concern in the state of North Dakota than this Waters of the United States proposed regulation from the Corps of Engineers and EPA. There is incredible uncertainty out there. And building on what Senator Inhofe was talking about, most of you know that there's been a series of litigation involving what constitutes the waters of the United States. And we have a Supreme Court that divided 4-4 and 1 with very little direction on what we do. I believe that this is an effort for Congress to do what Congress ought to do when we have this kind of controversy, which is step in, provide guidance, be respectful in terms of where the boundaries are, but do our job in helping contain and define where regulation should go and where regulation shouldn't go. And so I'm proud to stand here in a bipartisan way and say Congress not only, I think, has to intervene, it must intervene because of the interest in our states and because of the concern of so many of the citizens, especially in farm country. I mean, I can't tell you how much uncertainty has been created by this rule, or even the implementation of existing interpretations of what constitutes navigable water under the Clean Water Act for purposes of 404. It has caused huge concern and as a result has slowed down the appropriate kinds of soil management that my farmers typically would do. Standing water that's not necessarily waters of the United States, gone without an opportunity to remove that water, creates huge soil condition problems. And so this isn't just an issue of what happens tomorrow or what happens with this year's crop. You could, in fact, have a soils problem that lasts for generations and years as a result of not doing the appropriate soil management. And so I think it's important to note that what we're trying to do is be productive. I think some people will see this as an intervention and an appropriate intervention before the final rule is here. I think that we're doing what Congress should do, which is legislate and not leave it up to the regulatory agencies. And finally, I think it's important to note that this rule, in terms of the timeline that we have, requires that they reissue a rule within this administration's time period. And so we're not talking about holding this off in terms of defunding implementation of the rule. We're not talking about doing that. We're talking about moving something forward that's going to give certainty to American farmers, American small business, so they know what's covered, what isn't covered, and that we're going to make sure that Congress weighs in on where those jurisdictional lines are. And so I think it's no surprise that what you see in front of you are people who represent farming communities, people who represent ranching communities. During the budget vote-a-rama, we had a sense of the Senate that was forwarded by Senator Barrasso. We were able to get 6 Democrats to support that. I think that everybody's been waiting to see what this bill looks like, and I think it's a great tribute to the bipartisan nature of this bill, that it is moderate. I think it is a bill that can be advanced and we can get enough support for. Is it going to be the final product? No one can say that. I've been around here long enough to know that everybody's going to want to have a little bit of input. But I think that the way this bill has been written and advanced in a bipartisan way, with compromises already built in during the negotiation that we had when we were writing it, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised and able to step forward. And so many of my colleagues are very concerned because their constituents are concerned. And I think if the product works, we're going to have the ability to build this out and actually do what Congress ought to do, which is legislate.